Change in species or progression is evolution. Common descent is where the species come together and have more than looks in common, but actual DNA and features that make them relatives. Fossils can tell us about growth patterns in ancient animals. Fossils are generally found buried in sequential order. Darwin's model of origins say that birds and mammals evolved from reptiles, which evolved from amphibians, which evolved from fish. The characteristics of new organisms appear to be modified forms of those of older organisms. The succession of life forms from simpler to more complex show a relationship between the new life forms and those that precede them, which is strong inferential evidence of evolution. Vertebrates and invertebrates can be shown to have evolved from past ancestors that didn't have the same traits as a relating one, or did to make them closely related. Geographic patterns of species distribution predicts that groups of organisms that are evolutionarily related will also be geographically connected, if not in the present, then at least at the time they diverged. Another important aspect of biogeography is the distribution of species relative to the distribution of suitable habitat. It is possible that species are found where there is suitable habitat and the geographic distribution of species could be explained without evolution. However, there are sometimes suitable habitats that lack species that would thrive there because of geographical barriers like oceans, rivers, and mountain ranges. Because geographic isolation prevents many species from reaching areas, isolated islands provide further examples of evolution. Over time, wind and waterborne seeds reach the islands, as do some birds and flying insects, but all sorts of organisms that could be potential predators never reach the islands because of their geographic isolation. Those species that did reach the islands are diversified over time because of the absence of related organisms that would compete for resources. This adaptive radiation can also be seen in Darwin's finches in the Galapagos Islands. We can look back at DNA to see that all organisms are somehow related with the beginning of time with eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. Visual proteins like skin, hair, and nails can relate to each other and show similarities with their genes are. Humans are most closely related to chimps or monkeys and share similarities like 4 limbs, similar eye socket position, jaw and skull shape, and interior organs. The two species function externally and internally the same, meaning they share common ancestry and have similar traits. Traits can be lost and found through natural selection. Homologous evolutionary traits are when two different species have the same basic organ, but they have different uses. Organs as different as a bat's wing, a seal's slipper, a cat's limb, a human arm have a common underlying anatomy, which was present in their common ancestor with 4 limbs. Analogous is a trait that appears similar in two unrelated organisms. A classic example of an analogy is the ability to fly in birds and bats. Both groups can move by powered flight, but flight has evolved independently in the two groups. The ability to fly does not make birds and bats closely related. Vestigiality occurs by normal evolutionary processes, typically by loss of function of a feature that is no longer subject to positive selection pressures when it loses its value in a changing environment. For example, in the human body, our wisdom teeth, appendix, and tailbone now have no use for us and may be weeded out in the process by next generation of humans. An important trait that varies between species due to their common ancestor is laying or birthing their kin. Reptiles and birds lay eggs while mammals do not. However, primitive mammals called monotremes do lay eggs. In reptiles, their emerging young use an egg tooth to cut through the leathery eggshell. Placental mammals, having lost their eggshell, have lost the egg tooth. However, monotremes have an egg tooth. Even now, several marsupial newborns retain a vestigial egg tooth-like structure called a carnacle, evidence of their reptilian ancestors. For bugs like beetles, there are many kinds, but all have very similar traits, even though they may not look the same on the outside, which is influenced by their environment. Natural selection is the most powerful predator and is used by evolution to find the fittest. Without evolution, species today wouldn't be as adapted and lack the biological resources it needs to survive.